Hey, Sandra, how are you? I'm so happy to have you here. It's been a while and we've known each other for many years. We were just discussing that we think it was, you started the Enneagram in 2007, correct? And
Teaching.
we met either later that year or in 2009.
2009, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So what made you interested in the Enneagram? What were you doing before the Enneagram that then launched you into wanting to make a full career out of it?
Actually, it doesn't feel as if I chose the Enneagram, but the Enneagram chose me. It it's been like that in many steps in a way, because before 2007 came on my path when I was doing a coaching training. I think that was in 2002, 2003. That was the first time that I heard of it. And it was kind of like something like a light bulb going on in my head, like, like
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah, I was still working as a consultant, doing a lot of coaching, but I kind of started reading about it, but there were not that many books at that time,
No.
especially not in Dutch.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, and then it was actually when I became an independent in 2006 that I decided now I want to kind of learn all kinds of models, and yeah, I just wanted to learn as much as I could, because before, as an employee, I felt always kind of restricted, like, no, that is too expensive, you cannot do this. And now I felt like, oh, I want to learn everything. And then, so my plan was I'm going to start with the Enneagram.
Yes.
But the actual plan was to learn about a lot of models. And actually, I did certify in MBTI as well afterwards, but it was not it was not a love affair in a way like I have with the Enneagram. And it kept surprising me. In the beginning, I kind of saw it as a typology, and it was kind of a nice framework to help me in coaching. But then the more I knew about it, it kind of opened new layers.
Yeah.
Every time there were kind of new layers, and it kept me interested. And the more I worked with it, I just noticed that it worked, that people recognize it, that it helped people in coaching. And I was like, wow. And so it was more, that's what I mean. It was not as if I was like, oh, I'm going to be an Enneagram specialist. It kind of evolved that way. And I want to learn with so many people and then make it my own.
Yeah, that's
Not
very
just not just copy or be part of a bigger thing. I am part of a bigger team, but
yes.
not as in a school or something. It just didn't feel as my mission.
And I find most eights really do feel that way, Sandra. That's the way I felt. I wanted to know for myself. And they had asked David and myself to be their first teachers. I said, I can't unlearn what I know, because I'd already done the research, I'd already knew and was teaching things that were different. And like you, I wanted to keep going and discover and just teach what I felt really sincere about, rather than following a formula.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has to feel like mine in some way, although it's not my material, but it has to resonate on a deeper level. And it's not with everything that's out there. Not everything resonates for me. Then I say, nah, don't buy it. Then I don't integrate it.
Stay like this rather than going. It's just a way that we do that, because resistance comes up and then something is plausible and then we want to know more. It's just such the dynamic of eight, where we just naturally leading with a gut type, we first feel resistance, but if something breaks through that resistance, then we just open the whole thing and want to do everything. You have studied with all the major teachings and you have incorporated them into your own work, and you wrote at least one book. Have you written more than one? Two. Okay, tell us about that.
one on the 9 types and one on the instincts.
And so you published them when?
The first was 2017. I think the other one was 2018 or 19. It was not long after.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
And is it just in Dutch, or have you translated it in English?
No, it's just in Dutch. Yeah. And it's kind of an advantage in a way. I used to feel sad that I had to translate everything and was a lot of work.
Yeah, that's true.
But now it feels more like this is less contaminated or in some way, because most of our people are just learning the Enneagram through us, and it's not as if they had like all these videos or whatever. So we don't have to unlearn things.
Yes.
And in a way, it makes it easier.
It is easier. There's no question. People that start with me from the very beginning, maybe they saw different things on YouTube or what have you, but then they choose to work with me because they like the topic or it matches something that's important. They don't have to unlearn things like integration, disintegration. They realize from the very beginning that you always use both lines, that it was just a misquote that went around the world. But those who did learn it are stressed and secure. They have to unlearn that and realize, oh, yes, when I'm stressed, I'm going to be the low side of everything. My wings, my subtypes, my type, the whole thing. And when I'm coming from a higher place, all of it's up. It's easy because you're not losing the two variables. You're just doing both. But it's hard for people at first because I had it as well. That's what I learned, integration, disintegration. And even Spencer at 7 years old could say the lines of connection. And, I remember
my first training was like that as well, actually, or a few of my trainings. Yeah, were talking about that as well. Actually, until you told me like, oh no, it's not really something that was, true.
It wasn't meant to go out that way.
Yes.
A simple mistake. But it did match the Catholic model of sin and redemption. And so there's a reason that he used it. Because Naranjo said he did tell Robert Oakes that he didn't mean that in the same study group, he'd realized right away that it couldn't work because the Enneagram was trialectic. And that was what was distinctive about it and not dialectic. But he said no, that he really liked it and continued to use it as a model. And then there it went around the world. But accidents happen. I've even had people tell me, like, Katherine, why did you say that the 5 does this? They might find me on Facebook and send me a private message. And I say, I don't teach that. Oh, yeah, you do. And I go, well, no, I've seen it. Where have you seen it? And then they would have found something on social media. And it looks like it's my work because someone took my book and put it up. And then what happened, originally I was given attribution, so they knew it was from me. But then people would copy it and make a new post. And then they would change it because they'd say, well, I'm that Tritype and I'm not like that. And then they'd add things that they related to. And they didn't know they were actually discussing another Tritype. So it looked like it came from me, but it didn't. And then I thought, well, there's nothing we can do about that. That's going to happen. And then I started making more available on my website and the internet. Do you ever find that doing things? Now, you do have the community of Dutch-speaking attendees, so they're more consistent.
Not really. So I think that is one of the perks that I have working in Dutch, that it's not as contaminated, but it's also more protected in a way because it's not going out there to millions of people. It's more.
But it is unfortunate for the people that are English speaking that would benefit from your book, because you're one of the few people that uses all of it and has the working knowledge of bringing it in businesses and with coaching. And you have a school too. Tell us about the school.
Yeah, I started teaching the Enneagram 2007, and then I had this major opportunity that a big company with 30,000 people asked me to teach for them. And that made it possible for me to see thousands of people. And that was a perfect learning school because you have theory, but then you have the practice. And then you have the cultural overlay as well.
Yes.
So it was really great to see so many people. And when I wrote the book, it was so easy. I remember the book was a description of the 9 types and then just kind of a chapter for closure. But it took me like 4 or 5 hours to write it, and they hardly had to edit it, but because it was kind of all there, and it was just flowing out because I've been teaching it so many times. It was
It's
just
just a
that
part of
easy.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was very easy to write it. And people give me that feedback that I kind of wrote it the way I teach it. So it's very kind of easy to read and with a lot of examples of people. And so, yeah, it's very recognizable.
And we do have those examples. Yeah. Especially
Lots of them.
working with a large company, because then you get all the different areas. Like the same thing happened to me with the Federal Reserve. I had contracts for 15 years, and it made it so that I literally could teach the people that were doing the infrastructure, repairing the buildings, and remodeling, as well as the people that were team 5. And it didn't matter whether it was statistics or the Enneagram's the same everywhere.
Yeah. And now they can follow like 12 days. So we cover a lot of topics of the Enneagram as well. So it's not just teaching the 9 types and the instincts, it goes further. And so
tell me, so tell me what you're doing. Yes. So you teach the 9 types, and then like
so I have 2 days of 9 types, and it's 2 days of instincts, and it's 2 days relationships, where we cover like conflict and communication, and then we put the types together and have them have conversations like how do the types come together. Then there's a integration with kind of that's more the levels, like the dynamic within the types. And then there's a part about the inner critic, and then an energetic exercise to kind of feel the types within themselves. And then the 5th training now that we started last year is Enneagram Moves, which is kind of a mixture of Enneagram Motions of Andrea Isaacs for work. But not just that, there's also energetic exercises that we do the first day. And then there's also a couples training.
Like adding core energetics, or just the physical?
No, not just, no. It's like very simple exercises where you see the difference in types. Like it's a very simple exercises where they walk, and they have to follow the pace of my co-trainer. Marianne was walking, and they were following her pace. And then we go from slow to fast, and then fast to slow. It's so funny how everybody with 9 in the Tritype was in the slower pace group. They all felt resistance when they had to change, and they wanted to go slower, and it was so obvious, like, okay. And then but then we kind of discuss, like, okay, what is the advantage, but what is the disadvantages of going fast and going slow, and how can you find a balance between them? And that is a very simple exercise, but that's the first. But the last is about how do you make yourself bigger and smaller, which is very confrontational.
Yes.
And but they get a lot of information out of those simple exercises. And then the second day is more Enneagram Moves, Enneagram Emotions, kind of feeling into the 9 types, the healthy level and then the average level. And then they have couples training as well. So we cover a lot of different topics within that company. And besides that, Marianne and I started the Enneagram School 2013. And there I teach also more advanced stuff like the essential Enneagram, where I cover the holy ideas, or now I will do an object relation training again. We have a certification process. We have kind of, whatever comes to my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a 3-day team coaching.
Sounds familiar. So the school then is how they certify to then become teachers themselves, or if they just want to learn, like a lot of people.
Most of our people just want to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, some people take all the classes and don't certify, and I have many, many classes now.
Yeah.
But I find that if we get hooked by it, it makes a difference in our lives, and we understand people and can depersonalize what's so personal. Things just don't hang around like lurking variables, like we don't know why something's so difficult to manage. We can manage it so much faster.
It's a true liberation.
Yeah.
I see it as a liberation. It kind of saved me, the Enneagram, and in many ways, it saved me from the pride of being a master in psychology that knew people, which was not true. So that was an illusion that I could give up.
Yep.
But also not taking things personal. It is such a liberation that it's not about me. And whereas, I don't know, it's almost as if you're really on the average levels, people see things as all about them.
Yeah.
And now I realize, but nothing is about me, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be about me. It's so simple. And life becomes much simpler. And it's not just not taking personal, but also not criticizing. I feel way more kindness to people because I really see how they're struggling. And if people lash out or they do something that I don't like on an ego level, I can also feel, okay, but it's just a sign that they are struggling.
Yeah.
And there is a story for sure why they're doing what they're doing, and they're just trying to defend themselves. And just seeing that whole dynamic is just, it's kind of nice to live without that criticism the whole time.
Yeah. Or the feeling that you have to do something about it. I know that one thing for certain is about 15, 20 years ago, probably more like 20 years ago, or even a little earlier, coaches and therapists were telling people they needed to stand up for themselves. Well, that's actually not what people needed to do. They needed to stand in their own personality, but be open and yielding. So when people learn to stand up for themselves, a lot of times they just had more conflict. It didn't bring them closer. And I think really the Enneagram gives us that ability to see, oh, they're focusing on that particular issue because it's part of their defense strategy, where I'm not. Like, I had 4 friends from high school. We knew each other from 2nd and 3rd grade all the way to now. And we'd get together every year and we'd remember old events. Every year we'd discuss the same events. Remember this? And even though we would have heard the year before and the year before that, the whole story, we'd remember only our piece of the story. And if we experience something, it's much easier to remember, of course. But I used to always wonder why my friend was always saying what was dangerous, what could go wrong. I go, what's going to go wrong? If something goes wrong, we'll deal with it. And then I really understood 6. I go, well, she's to be noticing that. And she was also meant to say to me, well, Katherine, aren't you afraid you'll get in trouble? I go, what if I get in trouble? If it's the thing I think needs to happen, then I'm willing to do it. But it would scare her sometimes when I would just stand up to like someone at a department store that wouldn't return something because we were teenagers. And I'd say, oh, that's no problem if you don't have the authority to do that. Would you please call the store manager? He'll have the authority.
Yeah.
And then they'd do it. But she'd go, whoa, how did you do that? And I said, because it's the right thing. They shouldn't just pick on teenagers. They let. So But that's what each type offers, is a perspective, and we need all of them. And I did kind of realize through her that people could be intimidated even when I wasn't trying to intimidate them. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I haven't even done anything mean. Why would they think I might be mean? And she said, well, because anyone that is that confident might be wrong. And I thought, oh, that had never occurred to me.
Yeah.
Yes, I must say, Sandra, I feel like you've done such a great job of synthesizing everything you've learned. And I really believe you've added your own formula that makes it uniquely you. So even though you learn these pieces beginning when you were taking courses in psychology all the way through, but many modalities, and putting them all together is really, really amazing. And I've seen the people that you've taught and worked with, and they're just so much more savvy, so much earlier than people that are trying to grope with what is the right approach. So I must say that it's kind of they're more relaxed about it. Yes, they want to know their type, you're right, and they end up finding out the order of their tritype. But it just goes to show that more isn't more complicated. It just needs to be in a way that makes sense. And then when we understand it, it's huge. Like when I first was teaching the subtypes, there wasn't a book, or really just one had mentioned a little paragraph on each. And later, a few years later, Tom Condon had. But prior to that, it just wasn't available. And so there were pieces from Neuron Home, but I got it from Kathy Spieth, but even that was only rudimentary at the time. And then some people said, oh, that's too complicated. They're 27. I go, well, it's really not if you know the formula. It's the core fear of your Enneagram type with the core fear of your instinct, and you put them together, and then you know why you're going to do what you do. And then people relax. But otherwise, same with Tritype. Otherwise, people go, oh, I don't think I could remember all those. But then when they realize, oh, it's the core fear of the 3 types and the core idealization and the 3 defense strategies, you put those together and you know why the tritype. So yes.
I just experienced the Enneagram now after 20 years of really working with it and studying it and exploring it. I still explore it, and that is what I love, that I can still explore it. So I gave up the idea that I know everything now about it, the Enneagram, because I hope I will never know everything about the Enneagram. That's rather my attitude now. And for me, it's like kind of like a magical puzzle in my head, kind of like I see the connections between all the layers, and it all makes sense. And it's like, oh yeah, of course. Check. It's like one image, my head almost like, oh yeah, of course, this is what you're going through, because it makes it so much easier. But it takes time to kind of integrate all these layers. That's what I notice. Yeah.
We don't grow up learning or knowing those things. So when we encounter them with the Enneagram or other typologies, I still use MBTI as the way people are going to execute things, the process style. But it's so much easier. We have to know their personal history, but they're still going to look at their personal history through the lens of their type, their tritype, and their instinct. So the same thing could happen to another person, and they go, whatever, I survived like an 8. Or they might say, I was really traumatized. 8s, even if they're really traumatized, it takes us a long time to realize that. Whereas some types, like the 4 or 6, feel it really early. And then they learn they survived better than they realized. And then the 8s and 9s realized, yeah, they suffered more than they were willing to let in. So, yeah.
Yeah. But also what I really like is that it prevents me from projecting my world onto them. The more I see my world and my subjective reality, and the more I am aware of how I perceive it and live it, it's easier to put it aside when I'm working with people. You always told me you have to become neutral, and And that is what I really try to be as much as I can, to be as neutral as possible. So whatever happens in my life that kind of tries to evoke my defense mechanisms, I just know no, because it's not going to work. So I know that my lesson is to keep my heart open, whatever happens, and it works. And it makes it easier to put my world aside and kind of be there for them
Yeah.
in their world without judgment, just be there, and not without that filter of my world.
It's just
And,
such a good thing to bring up, Sandra. It's so important. We can get out of our own way, more present to the other person's issues, not putting them through the lens of our type.
yeah.
Now, is there anything that you'd like to say that I didn't ask?
I also saw the danger of using the model like just mentally, just on a mental level. And I've seen some people doing that, like a typology, and then kind of, I don't know, labeling people, and but they're not really integrating it in their life. And for me, I think it's crucial, if you want to work with the Enneagram, to be your own subject first and do your own work first.
Yes.
And not just mentally, but really, it's kind of like digging through the dirt. It's kind of really going deep. And luckily, I have the 4 within me to help me with that in my Tritype. But I really think it helps me still to not move aside when it becomes difficult, or never kind of lose the humility to say, okay, I can still explore, I can still learn, I'm still integrating. You're never there. And
No,
I think if you ever think or believe I'm there, then you have a problem.
that's so true, because even if we're there, things in our lives change and we face new obstacles, and we might not be experienced yet in dealing with something that hadn't been in our lives before. And we have to continue to learn and continue to do our own personal and go through our struggles. And that's the hardest time. I came to fully understand that a broken heart is an open heart, and that's why it hurts. But if we can do it, it's the time we are most able to see through whatever our structures are or were, and have a new perspective. So even though it's bleeding, when we stitch it back up, it's a new heart, still a more open heart.
Yeah. And when you said that in August, when my mother died, it really helped me, because it really helped me to see, you said, the grief reflects your capacity to love and your capacity to, you loved her. Huh?
Yeah.
And that really helped me a lot, because I felt like really overwhelmed, but that was okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I there's so many things that I realized that I could never have done the last few years if I didn't know the Enneagram, but not just knowing the Enneagram, but if I didn't work with the Enneagram, and if I was not willing to go to the dark side as well within me. And yeah, and also without all the coaching that we did together, it wouldn't have been possible to keep my heart open at that time. It would never have worked. I would have shut down, and yeah, would not have healed at all.
Yeah, it's so true. And I really appreciated being able to bear witness and to be someone with the same tri-type in the same stacking, the 874, and to just notice when you would shut down. I go, that's exactly when I shut down, because you're still thinking that. And well, this is kind of what I do. But she grew up in a different culture. She's younger. How might it be different? But being open to that makes it expand, but we can always see ourselves, and that's natural. We have transference, but then we can also use that transference to then go above and expand, because it's so natural to have transference with people that are the opposite of us or the same. And I remember when I was first coaching, like 40 years ago with the Enneagram, I had MBTI before that, but I remember I'd get an 8 and they'd be saying stuff and I'd be going, yeah. No, wait, never, hold on. Actually,
it sometimes happened with us when you were like, you're right. Oh no,
wait, time out. We're not supposed to do that. We're not supposed to sit down our heart. It really, if we're aware of our transference, and nothing gives us that more than these systems, to then say, oh, wow, no, I don't have that struggle, but it's very real for this type.
Yeah.
The sadness is not imaginary. They feel, it's not that they're wounded more than other people on the whole, but the way they interpret that wound is more intense. Now we have 4 as well, but we are governed by the 8. But having said that, it just makes it so much easier to understand, wow, that's when I feel misrepresented. And so finding the thing in my type that has the same power to destabilize me as it does with someone of another type, and knowing, okay, what's the equivalent here? Do you find that as well in your coaching, that you said you had the compassion, of course, but have you noticed?
Yeah, I recognize it. Yeah.
Yeah, you are naturally the empathetic 8, especially as the ENFP, but we're also born with a degree of empathy, as you know. And that's sensitivity. That's how it's measured in the DNA, in our chromosomes. They can imagine who would have childhood sensitivity, and then that they feel leads to empathy, just like the warrior gene. But we had both. We had the warrior part and the empathy. It's like, what do you do with it? Wait, I'm fierce, but wait, that really hurts. Or they're really hurting. It's like, so we're protective like that too. Like if someone mistreated and the empathy rose, want to step in.
Yeah, but I think it shows up for me as not really standing up for myself.
Right.
And I had, although I had the self-image that I was standing up for myself, looking back, I realized it wasn't for me. It was always for somebody else or for something higher or whatever, but not really in my own personal interest. And I think maybe that is because of the empathetic piece that I didn't do it for myself. But I think that is one of the misconceptions that every 8 kind of goes for what they want for themselves. And it's like, no, not really.
Even
It's
the
kind
word
of a
control is not the way 8 was taught. 8 was taught as reacting and wanting to get even, wanting to get back whoever did something wrong to them or to others, to make it even. Part of about control was added by people who didn't study with the Chazo neuron. Now, obviously, if people are in our environment and in our territory, then we do kind of want our world to be the way we want it. Like, I want to know that my pencil is right here. I don't want someone to take it. Hey, who took my pencil? But it's still, no, every type wants control. Just how are they going to go about getting it? And every type is angry. Just how are they going to express it? And you know what they did unintentionally? They labeled anyone angry as an 8. And especially the hot anger. That 8s get more cold and stony. So when we're really angry, It's more we set people to walk into their own trap. And if there is a trap, if they pass it, that's not a problem. But if someone lies to us, which we're sensitive to, that's when we say, so let me get this straight. You're saying that at 3 o'clock, and they go, yeah. And then, yeah, exactly. How could you be here at 3 o'clock and then 3 o'clock?
Or how do you explain that?
Yeah, that's the way we get. We don't get all hot and angry. It's usually people that lead with a heart type that do that, or the reaction of the counterphobic 6. Now, if we really feel invaded, we can do that. I'm not saying that any type can do that. But what's more important is the gut. The gut clenches, gets stony. We just totally shut off our heart.
But you know, what I also noticed working so long with the Enneagram is that more and more of the concepts that used to be kind of, put in one box that are, as you say, not the 8s, just not only the 8s wants control, every type wants to control something. I would even say every subtype wants to control something specific. Or arrogant. I see arrogance in the 9 types, but just a different way.
Yes.
And so it all becomes kind of very subtle, that a lot of things are true for everyone, but just in 9 ways.
Yes, and people don't realize that, like when I was first learning the Enneagram, it was believed that the 8s didn't care about anything. But that's more what we did as a defense. We'd say, I don't care.
I don't care.
Underneath, or it doesn't matter. It's no big deal. That's their problem. Sounds like a personal problem to me. That's what I would say. But I did care. And kind of digging and finding that, oh, you actually do care. And you don't like that when you stood up for that underdog, that people didn't understand. That was like, what? That wasn't about me. That was because that person was being mistreated, or someone was lying about that person. But it wasn't always seen that way. And it'd be more like it'd be irritable, but underneath that irritability was sadness. Like, wait a minute, I was just trying to be fair or have someone treated fairly.
Yeah, it was something off in my body when I said that. Like, I don't care. And then afterwards, I would feel something, and I was like, what is this? But I would not have been able to put it in words. So it was very physically that I felt it.
Yeah, whenever the 8 is flippant with that, like, who cares? Whatever. It's the tone of whatever. A lot of types might say, well, whatever. But it's like, remember this when we were talking about how the 8's kind of it works in every culture, right? But that's just part of the stance and how to hold a powerful position when you're afraid you're weak and pathetic. And it's true of every type.
It's and just a defense.
Yeah, and the types that think they're weak are quite strong. Area that they're unaware of, like the 216 that's really introverted, and they think, I've never hurt anybody's feelings. I said, well, what about if you don't stand up for someone? Aren't there people whose feelings are hurt when you don't take their side? Oh, I can't take anybody's side. And I said, why not? Well, because then the other people will be mad at me. I said, yeah, that's right. That's why you don't. That's your Tritype doesn't want to take a side. They want to have everybody happy. But don't you think that not taking a side, that both people might be somewhat unhappy? Oh, because it never occurred to them that not choosing a side could hurt people. And of course, we all want it on our side. But it kind of changes that whole thing. And then, and the 459s, the way they think, yeah, well, those extroverted people should have invited me to contribute or ask my opinion. And I said, why? Well, because that person's talking so much. I'll say, did it ever occur to you that person might be an anxious 6 that's talking because they're anxious, just like you're anxious about stepping in? No. And it just changes. And so they seem arrogant, the 4, 5, 9s. There's a haughty quality that they don't realize. And I said, well, a lot of times people don't invite you because they're afraid you're going to be disapproving of them. It's because the 4 and 5 show their discontent in a more physical way rather than saying it. So yeah, it's magic to know all these systems. And then we all can recognize something that we do that we're totally unaware of.
Yeah, true.
Well, it's been wonderful, Sandra, and people kind of got a master class on type 8 as well, because we're both 8s. And it's just natural for us to immediately just drop into that dynamic. And of course, we could have done much, much more. But it's just a pleasure. And I thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you for inviting me
to the Enneagram community. And I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Same here.
Okay.
Thank you for all your work and support and all the lessons that I learned from you.
You're
Not
welcome.
just here, I mean,
yes.
on every level.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.